When dealing with souls, a lot can get confusing. That is why it is imperative that we learn all we can. For to understand the mystery of the human threat is the first step to protecting our race. And due to my little friend here in my hand, we've finally been able to be provided with able information. So without further ado, let's go over the basics, shall we? What you know to be human is actually comprised of two different components. Well, actually even three under special circumstances, and due to said circumstances causing a human to be even more powerful, that will remain the focus of our research. Component 1, the vessel. Well, I suppose that's simple enough, isn't it? A soul needs a host to utilize its power, but that does bring us to component 2, the soul. The mysteries of the soul has been a discussion for as long as I can remember, even amongst other humans, though I suppose if I had to simplify it as a whole, to state it plainly, the soul is the culmination of one's being. Or at least, that's what it's supposed to be. Under, shall we say, normal circumstances, the souls retain their imprint and memories even after death. These personality traits, or perhaps even hopes or dreams if you'd prefer to call it, imprint on the soul fully. Now whether that's part of the soul or the vessel is quite unknown. But the main point concludes the two exists in harmony, a trait that is seemingly lost on our two-star humans. For even with our first subject here, their soul is oddly considered a separate being from them. Yet not only that, this so-called soul can preform actions that does not align with their views, a seemingly parasitic relationship. Now whether this means this subject can exist without the soul, or that the third factor's influence is gone, is beyond me. But the soul was what was being controlled, was it not? The sure thought of this offers quite the conundrum. But if it is one fact that seems clear, this seems to be no normal human, nor no normal case. This is something which I expect to even be the work of my partner here, which I know he has at least attempted to do in this world. But regardless, unless it is custom for humans to call upon a higher power to control them in times of need, which I would doubt, this means these two humans are seemingly anomalies, not following the rules of the other souls. For it seems the only time the other souls would act against their will or beliefs is under absorption or control of another being. Even then, upon calling out to their humanity, they eventually remembered said beliefs. Something that still seems very different from our two subjects. Now if I had to guess, this so-called phenomenon is actually caused by either a fear or a mental suppression imposed by the absorbing entity, a similar tactic that was no doubt used by the god of hyperdeath. A being with such power, they scrambled the mind of monster souls, making them either extremely pessimistic or just solely bringing out their negative traits, thus leading to them attacking the soul in almost a trance-like state. Because of this, I believe this to be how soul absorption works. The entity resides deep inside you and is suppressed with negative emotions as you siphon their power, a case that I suspect carries over to here as well. But then again, something that is rather curious is that the souls don't actually appear much in the god of hyperdeath fight. In fact, they don't appear at all. Yet their power undoubtedly had to contribute to the majority, would it not? It even allowed for the monster ones to be taken as well. Perhaps this absorption might even be the correct way for human souls to assimilate, with the other absorption being more primitive, or incomplete, if you will. Either that, or it is simply the vast power difference between these two forms, though it is still weird how you can save the monster's souls and not also the humans when fighting the god of hyperdeath. So I believe my former analysis may still be correct. Now you may be wondering, where does this all lead to? Well, I'm glad you asked. Allow me now to introduce you to component 3, the operator, or as you may better know it as, the player. The operator is a foreign entity that now inhabits control over a soul, which then has priority over a vessel. In other words, there is somewhat a hierarchy between these three components, and the operator stands above them all. As for the operator's purpose for existing, I can only guess. But it seems their main function is to give the human determination, so much so that it allows for the alteration of space-time, allowing for timelines to both restart and stop simultaneously. Please note that this power, or at least this method of activating, is not a natural ability for humans to do for such a reason, which overall leads me to even suspect there must be some sort of device in play, a device that can form a connection with the soul and their vessel. The only problem, of course, being that there might not be much selection to choose from, as only certain humans and souls seem to be specifically compatible with this strange process. But it really does go to show how much of a power difference it can make. Humans are already much stronger than monsters, and even their intent to harm can cause massive damage to us. Yet, combined with this, well, even a small child could become unstoppable. In fact, the only other known case of soul power being used is during the creation of the barrier, in which the humans seem to be using magical staffs in order to channel their power, something they might not be able to do by hand, let alone have the ability to save or load. Which finally brings us to this. Just exactly how does the device connect? Well, while I may not understand Subject K's situation yet, I do think I have a good idea about Subject F. Allow me to tell you a story. Long ago, there existed a human child that shared the exact same name as you, the very first that fell into the underground. What's that? You say you don't have a name? Well, I guess neither does my friend here at the moment, but you know what? That's all right. Let's just call this human character for simplicity's sake, or Kara for short. Anyway, once upon a time this Kara fused with the one known as Azrael. I'm sure you know the rest of the story. If not, that's for another time. But point being, when they both died, I believed reincarnation was activated. Azrael's very essence had turned into the flower, and Kara's had turned into the red soul once more. For those of you familiar with Project Determination, you'll know that Flowey was brought back through reincarnation, though not fully. We know this Flowey had already existed before that, and that was indeed Azrael himself, just not sentient. But by adding the determination to live, it became something much more. And so I ask you, why not the same for Kara? Perhaps Kara's soul was seemingly dormant as well, and was thus awakened and activated by our determination. Now, whether this was just Kara's soul reincarnated, or also Frisk as the vessel, that I'm unsure of. But because we share the same name as the child, we were thus connected to them by this so-called device. Though even a device advanced as this would not be without its side effects, for souls are very complex after all. Due to this, you may experience Kara's memories from time to time, or occasionally see their thoughts. But no worries, you'll still be in control at the end of the day. This subject is particularly dormant only, almost as if in a tired dream or trance-like state, while the vessel also remains seemingly asleep during activation. All of this is to ensure that you, the operator, maintain smooth control while on your journey. However, if you so choose to become more determined, and even stronger at that, you may run the risk of awakening the soul. You see, before this life, Kara was a megalomaniac, or a person obsessed with strength or obtaining the most of something. If you were to tread on this path, their old instincts might start to wake them up. Now, while this is ill-advised, the freedom is still yours to do so. Just know that the soul may call out to its all-body, host, and memories. And in doing so, use your own determination against you. The connection does go both ways after all. And that is why you must be especially careful at times. Otherwise, everything should all be fine. The most resistance you'll likely encounter is simply the vessel's body making expressions while this is happening. You wouldn't want to turn their rest into a nightmare, would you? But even then, that is unlikely, well, unless the soul corrupts it enough by becoming too strong. But again, you have been warned. Lastly, I theorize that the older a human subject is, the more resistance you shall face. This is because their consciousness, memories, and personality has been more developed. Additionally, if a human vessel is determined enough on its own, its sleep may be restless and it might yearn to reclaim control back. Let us hope you don't encounter such complications. As for Subject K, I do believe this to be one of not the core issue. However, it seems the device connection may have encountered alteration or interference from another, or perhaps this is even intentional. Either way, this other connection seems different. Either way, these are the notes I have written for each experiment. Experiment 1. Vessel, Frisk. Status, repressed. Soul, Kara. Status, dormant. Controller, you. Status, device, connection. Experiment 2. Vessel, Chris. Status, inhibited, awake. Subject may experience discomfort. Soul, unknown, possibly Kara. Status, unknown. Controller, you. Status, device connection. Shared joint connection with... Redacted! Final notes. The person with the most determination gains the ability to save and load. It seems in Experiment 1, the connection to Subject F was made in order to surpass the determination of another or to achieve a goal. Perhaps to see what human could accomplish with such an ability. Experiment 2, on the other hand, is a very different story. It seems not to be a test about the power of determination, but rather something else, something much darker. Either way, all I know is I have to do everything I can to revive this other me. I owe him that much, don't I? He is still me, after all. Or just solely bringing out their negative traits, thus leading to them attacking in almost a trance-like state, trance-like state, trance-like state, trance-like.
You wouldn't want to turn their rest into a nightmare, would you?